Hello, welcome back to day 14 of our Contigo 30-day wellness challenge, where we're challenging you to learn more about mental health and maybe even implement some of these wellness strategies that have been presented. We're also really excited to highlight the work that our amazing Hispanic and Latinx therapists are doing out in their communities. So we're glad you're here with us today. Today, we are going to talk to Cynthia De Leon Fuentes, and Cynthia is a bilingual licensed marriage and family therapist. She provides mental health therapy and consulting services in California. She's a first-generation Guatemalan American who was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. She received a bachelor's in marketing from California State University, Northridge, and a master's in clinical psychology from Antioch University in Los Angeles. Cynthia has spent much of her career working with children and adolescents and families in community mental health settings and has developed and facilitated trainings for LA County's Department of Mental Health. Now, more recently, Cynthia's launched her own private practice, Cynthia De Leon Fuentes, LMFT, where she focuses on providing individual mental health services to BIPOC adults who are processing issues related to trauma, anxiety, depression, and general life stressors and conflicts. Through her practice, Cynthia also serves as a consultant for organizations seeking to expand their knowledge about mental health related topics. For more information about Cynthia, you can visit her at Cynthia De Leon, LMFT.com, and we'll also leave her information so you can access it later. Today, Cynthia is going to discuss microaggressions and their impact on BIPOC mental health while identifying, healing, and coping strategies that promote an overall healthier well-being. So Cynthia, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this project. All right, so today we are going to be talking about microaggressions and their impact on mental health, specifically the impact that they have on BIPOC mental health. So by BIPOC, for anybody who may not be familiar, when I say BIPOC, I am referring to Black, Indigenous, and or people of color. So we're going to be looking at microaggressions as they pertain to us, to the BIPOC community. All right, so let's begin by defining what a microaggression is. So a microaggression is a comment or an action that is negatively targets a marginalized person or a group of people. So these comments can often be conscious or unconscious. They tend to sometimes be overlooked as minimal, maybe something that's said as a joke, but in the long term, they do have more detrimental effects on our mental health. Just as a side note, I chose to add little mosquitoes on here just because there's a very popular video on YouTube that defines microaggressions as the form of mosquito bites. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I definitely recommend it. Kind of outlines microaggressions in a more creative way. So let's define what a marginalized group or a marginalized person would consist of. So for the purpose of today, we are focusing on BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, and or people of color. However, a marginalized group or a marginalized identity can be that of if you are a woman, if you're an immigrant, particularly an undocumented immigrant, if you are LGBTQ+, or maybe a person with a disability, a physical disability, a disability that maybe is a little bit more obvious to the eye, although there are many disabilities that are not. So again, these are all, if you are identify with any of these groups, there is a high likelihood that at some point in time you have experienced microaggressions or you regularly experience microaggressions. So let's go over some examples of what a microaggression looks like, right? So up here we have a BIPOC family is seated next to the bathroom or kitchen when there is plenty of available seating in a restaurant. So I actually had something like this happen to me when I was out dining with my family here in LA. It doesn't feel good. It's one of those experiences where it kind of leaves you wondering, you know, what is that about? Why is it that I'm getting seated in this random place in this restaurant when there is a lot of open seating? And so the hidden message in an interaction like this would be maybe that the family that is being treated this way is maybe seen as a second-class citizen or as though they are undeserving of maybe some sort of first-class treatment, right? And again, this is not just a one-time thing. This is just an example of one experience. We can also see a microaggression would be when if a person uses the term gay to describe a show or a movie that they didn't enjoy. And so the reason this is a microaggression is because the hidden message that is being said is that being gay is associated with negative characteristics, right? Another example would be a woman is catcalled by men as she walks down the street. So again, the hidden message in that experience is that your body and your appearance as a woman are for the enjoyment of men, or is there for the enjoyment of men. So again, these are just some examples of what microaggressions can look like. But the idea here is that you consider what it might feel like to, or what it is like if you are someone that's experiencing microaggressions on a regular basis, to hear this day in and day out, maybe multiple times a day, right? What must that feel like? What messages are you receiving from the outside world about yourself, your identity, and who you are? Which leads us to our next section, which we're going to talk about what can happen with ongoing experiences of microaggressions. So microaggressions can lead to a series of different mental health related issues. And so I've listed some of them up here. So the first one we have is chronic stress. So chronic stress is a heavy amount of ongoing stress that we might feel in situations, particularly in situations where we feel like we have little to no control. So if you imagine, let's say, for example, you work in an environment where you are experiencing microaggressions on a daily. Maybe you hear comments, maybe you witness situations, maybe they're not always directed towards you, but you are kind of witnessing them and having a reaction to them. So coming into this type of work environment day in and day out can take a toll on your mental health, right? It can start to feel stressful, and it can start to feel like you have little to no control over the reactions that or what's happening in your work environment. When we are in stressful situations, our bodies tend to produce higher amounts of cortisol, right? Because this is the way that the body helps us manage stressful situations. When we produce higher amounts of cortisol, this is a part of why you might feel an increased heart rate when you're in a stressful situation, because the body is kind of trying to help you navigate that situation. However, if you are constantly finding yourself in these situations, you likely have higher levels of cortisol, right? Because your body is releasing this cortisol. The issue with that is that in the long run, these high levels of cortisol can lead to other medical issues, right? You can end up with a hormonal imbalance, some reproductive challenges, and other general medical issues such as diabetes, hypertension, and issues like that. So again, it starts off as a microaggression, but if it's an ongoing situation, ongoing experiences, they can lead to chronic stress, which then can lead to other physical issues. So another result from microaggression can be imposter syndrome. So for anybody who is not familiar with the term imposter syndrome, this is a term used to define a psychological pattern in which an individual will doubt their accomplishments or their talents. And the person may also have this persistent fear, this persistent worry of being exposed as a fraud, right? We tend to see this as if you are a BIPOC individual. This is a lot more common in maybe in a professional setting and also in educational settings, right? This experience of, do I belong here? Did I earn my place here? And so if you are in an environment where there are microaggressions kind of happening around you, whether it be about your own identity or the identity of other marginalized individuals, this imposter syndrome can kind of get really big and kind of start to take over the way that we see ourselves and the work that we do. With imposter syndrome comes self-doubt, low self-esteem, and a poor sense of self. With self-doubt, this is really, it's like a food for the imposter syndrome, right? Because the more we doubt our abilities, the more we doubt who we are and what we bring to the table, the bigger this imposter syndrome can get. Low self-esteem and a poor sense of self also are not really helpful to us, specifically in situations like these. When we have low self-esteem and a poor sense of self, we have difficulty recognizing our worth. We can have difficulty setting boundaries. We can have difficulty changing certain relationship patterns, right? Both at work and in our personal lives. If we don't have a good sense of who we are, if we don't recognize what we bring to the table, again, all of these experiences can end up impacting our mental health. And lastly, I have increased feelings of anger and anxiety. So if you are experiencing these microaggressions, and maybe there's a level of awareness, maybe there isn't such a high level of awareness around these experiences, they can lead to increased feelings of anger, right? They're happening day in, day out. The issue, I mean, anger is a very normal emotion, right? It's okay to feel angry. The issue becomes if we're not aware of where the anger is coming from, what is triggering the anger, then we also should be able to find healthy outlets for this anger. So let's talk about some things that we can do to keep ourselves safe if we are in environments where we are experiencing microaggressions or witnessing microaggressions on a more regular basis. So the first thing I want to highlight is having a supportive community. So a supportive community is really defined by you as an individual, whatever that means to you. So I'll use myself as an example. My community really consists of my immediate family and my best friends. And so if I have those set of people that I can kind of go to and talk to when I'm feeling some type of way, or I experience something, or I'm having a reaction to something, it really helps me feel seen and validated. For someone else, right, someone like you, maybe, that community could consist of someone else. Maybe it'll be a partner, maybe it'll just be a few family members, maybe it's one other person, maybe there is no family involved, right? We just kind of have other people that we've identified as a supportive community. Whatever the case may be, it's just important to have this outlet, right? These people that see us, that validate us, that understand us, that we can talk to about what we're feeling and what's going on. We also want to make sure that we are trying our best to practice self-care. And so self-care is really individual to every single person and family. When I talk about self-care, for me, it could be something as simple as, having a night skin time routine. I'm really big on that. However, that might be maybe a little too much time for a person that maybe has more things on their plate than I do, right? And so maybe carving out, 15, 20, 30 minutes a week to watch a TV show or enjoy a particular hobby. Maybe that might be somebody else's form of self-care. Whatever it is, it's really important to narrow it down and figure out, this is what makes me happy. These are the things that I need to do to care for myself, right? So it's really taking the time to show ourselves kindness, empathy, and doing these things to keep ourselves whole. We also want to make sure we're validating and acknowledging our experiences. So a lot of times we can ignore or minimize our experiences with microaggression. Maybe it's easier to do that depending on the situation. Maybe it's too difficult to speak up. Of course, given the situation, it all depends on the situation. However, it's important that we identify that this experience potentially was hurtful for us, right? That we're validating and acknowledging that this is a real situation and that we are having a real life reaction to this situation. We're not denying it, we're not minimizing it, we're admitting it to ourselves, we're being honest with ourselves about what we're seeing. And developing and implementing positive coping skills. So by positive coping skills, I'm referring to anything that helps you cope that is considered more positive, right? So if you're someone that's really into exercising, right? Maybe that exercising is a really good outlet for you. It helps you feel better. Keep going with the exercise. Maybe you're someone that likes to paint, or you like meditation. Just finding ways to include that into our lives, especially in times of higher stress. Maybe you're someone that really enjoys taking a hike or taking a walk. Again, whatever it is, these are all healthy ways of coping. I always encourage a lot of my clients to engage in deep breathing exercises. I think that these really help to recenter us. And it's also about being patient. So a lot of times, oftentimes, especially if we're just starting off, when we introduce new coping skills, or we're trying out new coping skills or different forms of self-care, it takes some time for them to start to to feel like they're working. So it's about being patient and really just kind of finding ways to, again, care for ourselves and tie in different activities that make sense for our lifestyles. Okay, so let's just talk briefly about how we can work towards preventing microaggressions. So first and foremost, we, even us as BIPOC or as if we belong to any other marginalized community, we too can participate in microaggressions. We can be an active participant in portraying certain microaggressions, conscious or unconsciously, right? It's just kind of, it happens because we are human beings and we have our own biases. We've all lived in a society that has very specific views about different people and different ideas. We want to make sure that we are confronting our inherent biases. So we're being honest with ourselves, and we are we're trying to be as aware as we can be about any microaggressions that we may be kind of perpetuating out in the real world, right? And why is that happening? Why did I react that way? Why did I clutch my purse when this person walked by me past the street, right? Or why did I have to make that comment around this person? Like, what was that about? So just being honest with ourselves and getting to the root of where is this bias coming from. We also want to try to be open to listening and learning. So listening and learning about other people's experiences, about other people's stories, and not just buying into what we get fed by the media, or what kind of society has just kind of deemed to be quote unquote the norm. So really just being open to listening and learning, and not always just on the defensive or assuming that there is one right way, particularly when we're talking about other cultures and people's experiences. We want to make sure that we are also thinking before we're speaking. So considering the words that you are going to contribute to a conversation, or how you're responding to someone. Oftentimes, again, microaggressions can be an unconscious, can be unconscious forms of communication as well. And so it's really important that we consider what we're saying around other people. And lastly, just continue educating ourselves. So attending talks like this, listening to podcasts, reading books, listening or kind of tapping into other media sources that are not so mainstream, right? Just to kind of get different perspectives and learn and educate ourselves in these ways. And that is all that I have today for microaggressions. As Diana said at the beginning of the talk, this is my contact information. I do have a small practice here in Los Angeles, California, and I see clients for individual therapy as well as family therapy. And I also offer consulting services where I talk about mental health and different mental health related topics.
Such an important topic. And I think as a BIPOC professional as well, I felt this topic to be very informative. And I like the way you mentioned confronting our own internal biases, because that's a really big part of creating that awareness. Just being able to check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
I really like that example that you gave. Like, oh, do I need to, bring my purse closer to me? What? And then, just to check in and say, what's that? What's happening?
Why am I engaging in this particular behavior? Why did I have this reaction? Or why do I think this about this person? So it's really, it's about being honest with ourselves. And especially as mental health professionals, I think that's extremely important, because we are holding space for people. And it's just important to have that awareness. Right.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Cynthia. We really appreciate your time and your expertise being here with us today. And we hope that you all enjoyed this workshop today. As mentioned earlier, we'll leave Cynthia's information if you want to reach out and learn more about what she's doing. And tomorrow, join us as we talk to Claudia and Ana Maria, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about suicide prevention, as we're in the final days of our Suicide Prevention Month. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.